welcome back to another edition of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast presented by DreamCricket. I'm your host, Peter Delapenna, and on this episode, we welcome Shaheed Keshvani, former Canada national team player at both under-19 and senior level, and most recently serving as the strength and conditioning coach for the Nepal men's team on their recent tours of Texas and Scotland. Shaheed is also the co-host of the Dropped Again podcast, which focuses on Canadian cricket. Co-hosts it with Arsalan Kadir. The two of them both represented Canada at under-19 and senior level, and he's also been involved with the Global T20 Canada, serving as a strength and conditioning coach for the Vancouver Knights in the past, and he's on the radar for other T20 franchises as well. He's done some work in U.S. domestic cricket with some of the T20 privately run tournaments that pop up from time to time on holiday weekends, so he's well known on the North American cricket scene, and he's also spent some time recently with Nepal, so we'll talk about all those things as part of the podcast. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody that the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast is presented by DreamCricket. DreamCricket Store can help you fill up all of your cricket kit requirements. Anything you need, bats, helmets, gloves, pads, jerseys. Go to DreamCricketStore.com and get 15% off your first order. DreamCricket Store also offers free shipping on all orders over $200. So again, go to www.DreamCricketStore.com to take advantage of that great deal today. Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast is also sponsored by Moosa Cricket Stadium, the first turf wicket facility in the state of Texas, and they're going to be hosting the USA Women's Regionals starting on July 25th in Pearland, Texas, and then after that, they're going to be hosting the USA Women's National Championship beginning on August 1st. So back-to-back weeks, they're going to be hosting some major tournaments in the USA Women's cricket scene. And for more information about Moosa Cricket Stadium, go to www.moosastadium.com. That's MOOSA Stadium.com. Moosa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas. And also, I want to remind everybody about Crickbuster. They are the official travel agent for not just the 2022 ICC Men's T20 World Cup in Australia, but also for Cricket West Indies for the upcoming tour of Florida and the T20 Ice that are going to be held in Lauderhill on August 6th and 7th. Crickbuster is the place you want to go if you're looking for premium ticket package, including match tickets, hotels, and transfer. Go to crickbuster.com today to begin planning your trip today. Today's edition of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast presented by DreamCricket. I am joined by former Canada off-spinner and co-host of the very popular Dropped Again podcast. I feel like I should go upstairs and get my Dropped Again hooded jumper on just for you, Shady. Shaheed Keshvani, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Peter. And actually, it's funny because like off-spinner is what it says and everyone goes off-spinner, but I got to throw it out there real quickly. Like I'm actually like the highest domestic run scorer in like Canada, so I used to crush it with the bat, but they just called me an off spinner, so they didn't have to select me in any of the tours. But thanks for having me on. I just wanted to clear that one up. I can actually bat a little bit as well. Or
that's the part of the origin of the Dropped Again podcast there.
Yeah.
People like me giving you a bad name, spreading fake news, and that was going all over Canada, and that's why you're hosting podcasts and being a strength and conditioning coach and doing all sorts of other stuff nowadays. So
yeah, man.
The most recent development, you were appointed strength and conditioning coach and fielding coach for Nepal.
Yeah, that's right. I'm super excited and obviously blessed, grateful to have the opportunity for sure.
So it's a big opportunity to be part of an international cricket team, especially one that's going to be playing a whole lot of matches.
I won't have a single day off. What's super cool about this is like, first of all, obviously Poobadoo, my former coach for Canada, and obviously his name speaks for itself, especially on your podcast. But we've been in chats for a few months now, and obviously it's this is all kind of his doing, and just wanting to get in, I guess, a professional strength and conditioning coach in with the Nepal boys, and so that's what my job is, to go there and sort of just assess some things. See if I can help out in any way and help these guys grow and help them get stronger in some areas that they might not be, and look to obviously help out the staff in other areas and just get quicker and more professional and try to just grow 1% every day. So I'm looking forward to jumping in on that.
You've had a long and winding road to get to this opportunity and this job, being part of the backroom staff in an international cricket setup. And then long and winding road starts in Calgary, Alberta. You're living in Toronto at the moment, but I want to talk about this. I want to seize the opportunity to get a chance to speak to somebody who played junior hockey. You don't get too many opportunities on the Stars and Stripes Cricket podcast. So we got a Canadian here. And cricket was not your first love, from what I understand. So how did you go from junior hockey to cricket, and how serious was your pursuit of hockey before you started to drift towards cricket?
Obviously, hockey was my first sport. I started playing around 5 or 6 years old, and I guess like my family were kind of sort of decent athletes all the way around. So I was kind of excelling in sport at a young age, soccer and hockey, and decided to pursue hockey a little more just to confuse my dad and the family. Like my dad had no idea how to tie my skates or like any of the equipment or anything like that. So just started off with sort of house league minor hockey, and then realized, I guess the coaches and that realized that, I had a bit of potential. So yeah, I ended up moving up the ranks there pretty quickly and played at the highest level for my age group for about 6 to 8 years there. And yeah, man, got to like age 16, 17, where, I guess around 12, 13, puberty hit, and a lot of the guys got bigger and stronger and mustaches and that. And I definitely didn't. So was a little bit behind the pump. And in those old days, like the rules were different, right? So there was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of hitting, there was a lot of hooking and pulling and checking and cross checking. So the sport was really rough. And in my draft year, I unfortunately tore my MCL in a high school baseball, like recess baseball incident, which really set me back because, I was obviously out for half of that season. It was the beginning of the season, and that's when, all the scouts are out and you're able to sort of prove yourself. So unfortunately, that had me pulled back, but so meaning I wasn't going to get drafted anywhere in the first 5, 6 rounds. So I'd end up having to play junior hockey, which would have been somewhere not in Toronto, definitely not in Toronto. So it would have been outside.
Now, when you say draft, you're not talking about the NHL draft, obviously. This is for draft for junior hockey.
Yeah, so this would have been like the OHL draft. So all players who play AAA are hoping to go there. The scholarship thing, definitely not for me. I didn't really excel in school, to be honest. I was always playing sports, so I wasn't really getting any offers in terms of NCAA scholarships. So that was my only hope. And the injury obviously happened, and I wasn't necessarily being looked at very much, like with my size, and I wasn't a guy who's going to drop the gloves and fight that often. So I was sort of behind the pump. But my dad, super realist and former cricketer himself. Cricket's always been in our family, and like always played cricket, Peter. Like when I was young, 4 years old, 5 years old, wore whites, went to my dad's games, tennis ball, diving around, knew the game inside out because it was always the topic of discussion at the dinner table, captaincy stuff and all that stuff. So definitely knew how to play, just had never played the game or a game before. And my dad just kind of convinced me that, why don't you try out cricket, and, maybe you can see the world and play for Canada. So I literally like just stopped playing hockey right there and joined up like the local cricket thing. I never played junior cricket, so I just played with my dad and his team. And it was like that year right away where one of the prominent teams called Vikings had noticed me and brought me into their setup right away. So yeah, to be honest, the next year I was playing in the under-19 Canada team.
You're a member of the Toronto Cricket Club now. Toronto Cricket Skating and Curling Club officially is the extended title, but everybody knows it as TCC in the Toronto cricket community. Prior to that, were you playing hockey at Toronto Cricket Skating and Curling Club, or where were you playing most of your hockey? Because I think from memory, Eric Lindros and I don't know who else are members of that club, and they've had plenty of Olympic figure skating medalists. I think Kim Yuna trained there, the legendary figure skater of South Korea. And there's a lot of legacy and just famous names and personalities in the skating community, whether it's figure skating or ice skating, who are part of, and ice hockey, who are part of Toronto Cricket Skating Curling Club. So how much of that culture were you a part of on the ice hockey side of things?
Yeah, so Toronto Cricket Club actually just came about to me as a cricket opportunity. Toronto Cricket Club doesn't have like ice hockey there. There's a lot of obviously prominent players who have come there who are members there. And of course, the figure skating program is the best in the world with Brian Orser. So no, like the Toronto Cricket Club stuff just came about basically after my first year playing with that team called Vikings. And there's a funny story because played for Vikings that year and was able, I was a pretty decent off spinner, as you said in the beginning. So that's how I started out, and pretty dynamic in the field with athletic ability. So I got noticed right away by John Davison and Joe Harris, who was the Canada captain at the time. And then, of course, the Canada coach at the time was Jeff Thomas, and he was the pro. Him and John Davison were both pros at the Toronto Cricket Club. So, but playing for Vikings that year, and then we had a team called the Under-23 Canada team, which was playing in the league at the top level, and Jeff Thomas was the coach and the captain. So he selected me like right away, and nobody knew who I was and how I was getting in this team. But luckily, I kind of proved myself early on and got some wickets and kind of showed that I was a top young player, because I think none of the under 19 guys were even getting a chance, but I was. Anyway, fast forward, we have a semifinal game where Vikings, my team, and under 23s are facing off. So I've been playing for Vikings, in all the games. So like you have to play for your club first, right? So Vikings had a game, I couldn't play for under 23s, but I managed to play quite a few games for both. So the semifinals come up, and Vikings is a pure Guyanese team. So we had, like, at that time, if you know Toronto cricket and Canada cricket, like every team had, at least 7-8 guys from the West Indies, like if they were a West Indian team, and there were a lot of pros. So they had a great team, and they decided that they weren't going to play me in the semifinals, and because I wasn't experienced enough, and they were going to go with one of the more experienced guys or whatever. So fair enough. So obviously the under 23s go, well, I guess you can play for us. And there was a huge fiasco in the board and the TND, the lead board, that he can't play. Ultimately, it came down to my dad, because I was an under 19, just a junior. So my dad said, yep, I'm fine. He's going to play for under 23. He just wants to play cricket or whatever. So yeah, so basically I got a fifer in that game, and was the man of the match in that game, and under 23s beat Vikings, and it was a big upset and all. And at the end of the game, it was basically like, all right, well, I'm going to be playing for Toronto Cricket Club next year, because they had offered me a kind of a scholarship sort of ride there to play there. And that was history, man. It was as simple as that. My dad and sort of everybody just kind of said, you know what, you're getting an opportunity to play at the best club in North America on turf, 10 strips, amazing coaching staff, national players in the team, and the rest was history. So I've been at the Toronto Cricket Club ever since that would have been when I was 18 years old. And that move sort of was at the exact same time as when the under 19 World Cup sort of setup was for me. And I went to India, to Delhi for about 6 to 8 months before that under 19 World Cup to train. So that's the story about Toronto Cricket Club. And yeah, man, I've been there ever since.
I've got a few more hockey questions. I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit more, because
yeah,
I grew up playing ice hockey, and that was my number one sport all through my youth. And I feel like there's a hell of a lot of things that transition from ice hockey to cricket. I get really annoyed when people keep trying to force baseball comparisons and say, you're an American, you must play baseball, and you look like a baseball when you play cricket. I'm like, no, I stopped playing baseball when I was 10. I played ice hockey a hell of a lot longer than baseball, and things like the technical aspects. People just superficially, baseball's got a bat, and so does cricket, and they've got a ball. Right. And they're the same. No, they're not. They're played on different planes. And for me, the two sports I played longest, I stopped playing baseball competitively when I was 10, but cricket and ice hockey and cricket and tennis, I feel like are a hell of a lot more similar, because you've got tennis, the ball is coming off of bounds. Cricket, you're playing off of bounds. So the surface matters a hell of a lot, just like the surface in tennis, whether you're playing on a grass court, a clay court, or a hard court, the speed of the ball off the surface and how it reacts and how much it spins is just like cricket in terms of the variances of a cricket pitch and all that. But ice hockey, in terms of how you're handling the stick, the grip on an ice hockey stick, you got a top grip, and then your other hand is about halfway down. And I felt like when I was learning cricket, everybody who tried to tell me, oh, just swing like you would a baseball bat, all that did was make me more and more confused. I couldn't understand what the hell they were talking about. And a lot of these people were saying this clearly had never played baseball before. And what changed my mentality when I was first learning cricket, I was watching an India versus Pakistan test match. I forget the venue, but it was when Irfan Pathan took 3 wickets. I think he took a hat trick in the first over. And then Cameron Akmal scored a century to lift Pakistan back into the match. This would have been January or February 2006. And they showed Cameron Akmal batting from the stump mic. And from that angle, the way he was holding the bat, all of a sudden something clicked in my head and I said, wait a second, I've been doing this wrong for the last 6 months. I've been trying to learn cricket. I should be holding my bat like I would hold an ice hockey stick. I played baseball right-handed, And everybody kept on telling me, oh, just swing a cricket bat like you would a baseball bat. And so I started right-handed when I was first learning cricket. And then I looked at Cameron Akmal and I played ice hockey left-handed. And I thought, let me turn this around. And just the top hand for ice hockey, top hand in cricket would be I'm right-handed and everything else, but ice hockey was left-handed. So I thought, let me switch this around because this makes more sense. And I switched my stance to left-handed. And same thing with tennis racket. If playing tennis, I'm right-handed tennis. So I hit right-handed forehands like this, but on my backhand, you grip the backhand, a two-handed backhand, like you would if you're a left-handed ice hockey shot.
Yeah.
And so very next training session, I turned myself around, started batting left-handed, and 90 to 95% of my technical issues went away immediately. All of a sudden, I could start playing with a straight bat a lot more confidently. My defense was a lot more compact instead of where I was right-handed. I was coming down diagonally. I couldn't get a straight bat. And all these things I feel like transferred a hell of a lot more technically from ice hockey and from tennis to cricket than from baseball or any other sport. And I'm curious for you, growing up with this extensive ice hockey background, basically all through your youth. You say you started as an off spinner, and now you're a dominant scorer in the TDCL and all that. But batting wise, and just some of the other fielding aspects, and just lateral movement, ability to just, again, baseball is a very stationary game when you're swinging the bat, just one step forward. Whereas ice hockey, tennis, there's a hell of a lot of agility and footwork and moving back and forth, having balance and transitioning your weight onto front foot and back foot if you're skating backwards, skating forward, all these kind of things. Yeah. So who better to ask you as somebody who shares this ice hockey background? For you as an ice hockey player in your youth, what were the things that you felt transferred best to cricket that allowed you to have such an accelerated level of success very early on in your cricket career?
Yeah, you kind of answered some of those questions there, like with regards to tennis and hockey and cricket being very similar. 100% agree. And like when I started playing cricket, and every time they let me bat, you know, I'm hitting everything because my hand-eye coordination is really good, but I'm hitting everything to the leg side. And that was at a time where like there was T20 cricket wasn't around. So like you come in and you're like, oh, this guy can't play, you know, with his elbow and bat and pad together and all that sort of stuff. So I'm like, oh, you can't bat. You're down the order guy. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess that's cool. But like everybody's blocking it and I'm smashing them. So what's going on here? So that's what happened with that. And then, you know, it took me a long time to figure out the technique for cricket that would appease sort of the selection, the like those who are judging you based on your whatever it is, right? Like, so obviously the game wasn't what the game is now back then. So that's that. And I think what helped you there was figuring out the sort of the grip is a huge, was a huge reason, why I was so bottom-handed. And even to this day, like most of my runs are scored on the leg side, and like Faf Duplessis and these guys who were excelling in field hockey, you know, I'm batting outside off stump. And if anything pitches in line, I'm going to probably play straight. And otherwise, you know, if it's in my zone, like I'm kind of looking to go leg side. So that was the difference in that in terms of technique. But from an agility perspective and I guess if in that strength and conditioning department and how relatable it is, yeah, for sure. Like hockey is such a hip dominant sport. It's such a lateral, you know, agility with things like mobility and the stability required to obviously do what they do on skates of all things. You know, everyone else is doing them on shoes. So that's why I think ice hockey, if you ask me, is the toughest game to play, you know, in the world from a team perspective. But tennis also adds in that obviously the lateral and the bouncing thing, but also the overhead factor to it, right? Like in tennis, you have to serve overhead and it becomes an overhead sport, which means the demands on the shoulder joint, and then obviously demands on hip. And then with cricket, especially, it's the demands on the ankle, right? So a lot of those three joints are things that I focus on a lot in my training and how I sort of subscribe and prescribe training for cricketers and for athletes in general is to really look at those three joints and focus on the mobility and stability restrictions, and then look to strengthen those things. So yeah, they're so relatable, and I use everything that I knew as a hockey player and my ability to just know different sports and be a fan of sports in general. Like I'm the ultimate sports guy, man. Like I played every single sport outside when I was a kid. You're talking baseball, road hockey, on rollerblades, you know, soccer, diving around as a goalkeeper. Who didn't want to be goalkeeper 1994 during that soccer World Cup, like, the flashy, bright soccer gloves and stuff, diving. Like I thought I was Brazilian. I thought I was the Brazilian goalie. So that's the reason why, I guess, the all-round fielding capabilities that I had, and the ability to pick up the game at obviously really late in my life, from the off spinning and the bowling and the fielding and the batting perspective, was just the fact that I played multiple sports. And I guess it kind of helped a little bit that I was naturally like, coordinated and had some kind of athletic ability.
Mentioned street hockey there. I played a hell of a lot of street hockey. I think everybody
Oh,
plays ice hockey, plays street hockey growing up. And the thing about that too is whether you're playing on rollerblades or you're playing just on your feet with street hockey, depending on how you're doing it. All the street hockey I played growing up was with a tennis ball.
yeah.
And so with that, again, the tennis ball it's generally speaking, it's not always moving flat along the ground. You're going to have a lot of
Those bounces
in street hockey, yeah, where the tennis ball is bouncing, you got to be able to control the ball and hit the ball while it's bouncing. And I feel like that transfers as well. That you've got a round ball that's bouncing up and down, and you're playing on that plane. You're playing on a plane where you've got to be able to hit the ball while it's bouncing. And if you're playing on smooth road surface or you're playing on a little bit bumpy surface, you got to adjust for all that stuff. And I feel like that comes into cricket and helps that as well. Now, what position did you play when you were an ice hockey player?
So I shoot right-handed, but I was a left winger. I played on the offside because my game was all passing setup. So like even on power play, I'd be on that other side wall. And I just like playing on that side. So I was always on my backhand, obviously going down the left wing. But when I would cross the blue line, I put on the brakes and look for that pass. And I guess I excelled in that and was able to play, some pretty decent AAA hockey through my minor career. And would obviously sometimes have to fight, which was great and fun. But it definitely didn't translate well to cricket when I brought that attitude, that level of compete to the cricket circles, especially early doors in my first couple of years. Like I'm sledging adults, right, and like chirping them and all kinds of stuff, which made me, I guess, a little bit more successful as a bowler because guys just hated me, wanted to hit me out of the ground, and I just kind of throw up I loved Suck Lane and Shane Warne. So my bowling action and the way I bowled was a combination of Suck Lane because I bowled off spin, but I would walk in like Shane Warne and just try to rip it. And those are my two heroes with John T. Rhodes in the field because I just fell in love with cricket after watching the 1999 World Cup. And those guys were prominent in that World Cup.
And you say that was a turning point for you falling over that World Cup, but you also mentioned before your dad was a cricketer who played for Kenya. Dad is from Kenya originally before coming to Canada. And he played in the 1970s as a scorecard I pulled up. Your dad, Fayaz. Kenya and Tanzania in the East African Quadrangular in October 1975, and it also involved Uganda and Zambia. So Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, and Tanzania. And in this match, batted number 3, scored 108, top score, scored more than half the runs, 108 in an innings of 203 all out. And then he winds up taking 10 wickets in the match, opens the bowling in the reply, 3 for 26. And then in the 4th innings, in the chase, Tanzania they were set 247 to win. And your dad took 7 for 40, again, opening the bowling to bowl them out for 103 in what would be, I believe, I guess, 143 run win. So your dad has some pedigree going back to his years with Kenya, but ice hockey was obviously the first sport you played. So it doesn't sound like your dad ever pressured you into playing cricket. So if your dad wasn't pressuring you and you weren't really seeing your dad as somebody who was really leading you into game, then what was it specifically besides having this life-altering injury that really sucked you into cricket as opposed to any other sport that was still kind of on your radar?
Yeah, no, like for sure. Like, so obviously, yeah, my dad is definitely my hero. And cricket was always, like I said, the talk at the dinner table. So, my grandfather was a huge cricket guy and my uncle. So, we were brought up as kids and luckily, my cousins, there was 4 of us boys who lived kind of in the same house and we all lived together in Mississauga and when we moved from Calgary. So the talks at the dinner table were always around cricket because it was my dad, my grandfather and stuff. So we were engulfed in a very detailed cricket environment. Like, so much to things that like when I'm, 7, 8 years old, like I know that if a guy comes in and he's really holding this cricket bat like this, then you need this mid wicket to stand here with a helmet on. And this is how we set guys up with leg gully and all that stuff. So my dad was, and obviously still is my hero. And so he never so we're a huge sports family. So when you say like we weren't pressured into things, like whatever sport you play, like we were pressured in that sport. So like my dad, hockey and soccer, like especially in the hockey department, he was always on my ass, making sure that you didn't play well, you didn't do this well, you didn't do that well. But to keep it simple about dad and sports and what parents do, he was a single father. My mom passed away when I was about 4 years old. So he was a single father who sacrificed his life. And if you think about it, if he's scored 108 and took 10 wickets in a match in 1975, he was a walk-on, a shoe-in for the 1975 World Cup, which he declined to move to Canada, actually. So he from that time sacrificed his life to obviously have a better opportunity. But when it comes to me, sacrificed his life to take me to my hockey. And like hockey, I'm talking about 6 days a week. You're talking about evenings pretty much most times. And he would work downtown. We would live in Oakville, Ontario, so it's far. So you're talking about a guy who goes to work, 8 to 5, picks up his kid, takes him to hockey, and he's there at the rink until 10. So my dad, for 15, 20 years of his life, ate like hot dogs for dinner, drank Coke and hot dogs from the canteen at the rinks. And so that's the sort of sacrifice that he made as a parent. And when he sort of advised me to take up cricket and really push me towards that, it was at a time where he was at the 1999 World Cup in England. He was watching with some buddies, and we had the pay-per-view box at home. Remember the pay-per-view box where sometimes it went, you'd have to hit it a little bit and then it would go. Like, it wasn't the legal one, that's for sure. We couldn't afford that, but it was the old one where you had to give it a couple of knocks. And when we were kids, right, you're trying to not watch those channels, you're trying to watch the sports channels. So we were flipping back and forth as mischievous young kids. But I was engulfed right away by the Pakistan green, the lime green, and Sak Lane, and Wasim Akram and them. And then of course the shiny yellow caught my eye with Australia and how dominant they were in that tournament. So that's what happened, man. It's just like, it all came together at that time and it all made sense. And I'm like, man, I like cricket, and I'm going to go and make the best Shane Warne, Jonty Rhodes, Sak Lane sort of cocktail, if you will, and made it happen from there. And that was that.
So you get sucked into cricket through a combination of your dad and the 1999 World Cup. And as you said earlier, by 2004, you're playing for Canada in the Under-19 World Cup. When you were on the pathway towards representing Canada Under-19 and going to the Under-19 World Cup in 2004, did you have any concept at the time that being able to play at TCC was a big deal, in the sense that it's essentially, in my opinion, it's the best facility in North America, cricket and all the other stuff that goes with it? I mean, for people who haven't visited, I definitely recommend going up there if they let you in the door. It's a very hoity-toity high society club there. I don't know how they let me in. I don't know.
You'll be fine.
Well, like, again, you've got gold medalists, Olympic gold medalists.
Yeah.
They're wandering around with the skating program, and you've got a Olympic swimming pool, and you've got magnificent banquet venue rooms, and I would imagine they hold weddings there regularly. It's that kind of place where you would have large crowds. But in terms of cricket facilities, turf wicket, you don't come across a lot of those in Canada or North America in general. You've got this well-maintained turf wicket, and you're getting a chance to play on it on a weekly basis. Did you have any concept of that at the time as a teenager? Like, oh, I'm getting to play on the best facility in Canada, and while everybody else in BC and the Western provinces is playing on matting and artificial turf, and they're not getting the same opportunities as me? Or were you just thinking like, oh, everybody plays on these kind of wickets?
To be honest, like, I was pretty, like, I'm a really intuitive guy. So like, as soon as I got into cricket, I was really into it. Like, I started to meet the guys from BC, and I started to look around and see what's going on, and I would watch other games and stuff like that. And to be honest, man, like, I felt like at that time, like I was amongst the best players in Canada, so I should be playing there. So I kind of really fit in there right away. Whereas like I believe it was myself. I'm not sure there was too many young guys who would sort of play or make the A team of the Toronto Cricket Club at that time. And at that time, you could only be recruited there, so you couldn't really sign up and just join up if you wanted to. So it was prominent. Like, I mean, Ashish Bagai was there, John Davison was there, Joe Harris was there, Jeff Thomas, Zubin Sarkari. There's so many guys who were sort of top guys at that time. But I guess with my attitude and confidence, I just kind of fit in there, and like I was performing really well in the league, and I made a name for myself just through performances right off the bat. And obviously I was different, and it was the cricket club that it took the cricket club, like guys like Jeff and John Davison and Zubin, who were the only guys who kind of understood me, being a Canadian born, I guess, Indian looking kid with the name Shaheed, who's supposed to be this like Indian Muslim guy who's supposed to be, know the language. And like, I don't know the language. My parents are from Kenya, right? And I'm born in Canada. So I could chirp guys like I would in hockey, and just start getting out there. So I know I made a lot of enemies early on, but I played really hard when I was inside that rope. I played really hard. I was a winner and loved to compete. And when the game was done and off the field, I was young and I like to have fun. So I didn't really fit into the Toronto Cricket Club inside the doors. I guess after the games, I was more outside doing my thing and just enjoying life as a teenager at that time. So, man, to answer your question, like I was on top of the world at that time, bro, playing for the club, being in the national squad as well as the under-19 squad, and rubbing shoulders with those guys on a regular. And I guess like just getting good players out, right? Consistently getting good players out. You're getting the top guy out. Okay, that was a fluke. Well, is this a fluke? Is this now a fluke? How many times so I fit in right away and felt that's where I belong. So it was really nice. I never took it for granted, because I did work hard, man, as a player. I was always at training and worked hard on my game, loved the game, like really passionate about the game, and loved to compete. And unfortunately, in my tenure, I captained the cricket club for many years. I coached and played for the cricket club for many years, and we never won a championship, man. That's the one thing that Toronto Cricket Club at the top level hasn't been able to achieve. And unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to have too many more seasons left playing with my new career. So I think I might have missed the boat on that one, but that's how it goes.
Now I'm looking at your stats. 2003 ICC America Under-19 tournament with Argentina, Cayman Islands, USA, and Bermuda. Now, according to the official stats listed on Cricket Archive, you did not take a single wicket.
Yeah.
You got your cousin Abid, who was a teammate of yours. He took 3 wickets. You had Umar Bhatti, who had a fairly distinguished career for Canada senior team. He was one of your teammates. He was the leading wicket taker with 9 wickets, and he took 6 for 10 as his best performance. You had also other guys there people might recognize: Trevin Bastianpolai, who played for quite a number of years. Duran Sarain as well played for the senior team for Canada. So you had a fairly decent group of guys. How do you go from taking no wickets in the regional qualifier to taking a 5-wicket haul against Bangladesh in the World Cup itself?
Yeah, so like basically that Americas tournament was just like almost to the point where it's like, all right, well, we'll just let these guys sort of do the job. And I think we just steamrolled everybody to the point, like if Umar got 9 wickets in the tournament, like, no offense, like USA was nothing back then. There was no team that challenged us apart from Bermuda, I think the last game or whatever, where we were kind of under the pump. We were clearly way better than everyone else. And
just to get in here, for people who are listening from America, when you say USA was not there, you're not kidding. In that event, USA lost to Argentina. So that tells you where USA was in the grand scheme of things at the junior level at that point in time. Yeah. And Canada was far and away the dominant under-19 team in the region.
Yeah. So like we were already a shoo-in, and right after that tournament, we qualified and we went to Guyana and we played in the West Indies regional. So I can't remember. My memory is not the best, but I think like after that tournament, I might have been playing a game like for my club team. That's like the same day as one of the games because we won it so quickly. But I can't remember. But then from there, man, it was like we were thrown into the deep end for sure, because we went to Guyana to play in the West Indies regional tournament where, I know you're a stats guy, so you're probably going to fish through that now. But myself, Soham Anjaria, and Karun Jeti were in the top 5 wicket takers of that tournament. We were really successful in that. And those two guys were awesome players as well. We had a really good team and should have done a lot better in the Under-19 World Cup. But I think maybe pressure and well, I guess Bangladesh was a bit different for us at that time. But that was the real cricket. And unfortunately, the Americas tournaments at that time were like, it was, like you said it, right? Like Argentina beat USA and stuff. So it wasn't really much of a competition. That's the reason why I guess I didn't really play too much of a role.
Just to give people an idea of the players you were coming up against in that Guyana tournament, in the West Indies regional tournament that was in Guyana, but just the standard of player and your contemporaries at that point in time. So in the Guyana squad, it was captained by Asad Fuddin. You had Devendra Bishu in that team as well. In the Barbados team, Kirk Edwards opened the batting, and he played Test cricket for the West Indies. You had Leeward Islands, Kieran Powell opened the batting for them. You look at Jamaica, Xavier Marshall was a dominant player, junior level and at senior level.
Big time.
Obviously went on to play for the West Indies, and now he's with the USA. Everybody knows that. Who has fallen associate cricket, North American cricket. Chadwick Walton was the Jamaican wicketkeeper. You had Krishmar Santoki, who took a long time to get there, but he's in the West Indies senior side as well. What do you remember about that event in terms of taking on some of those players, especially somebody like Xavier Marshall, who he debuted for the West Indies senior team when he was 19. So at junior level in that event, he would have been perhaps the elite premier batsman that you would have been facing.
Yeah. Bucky, as we would call him back in those days, or he was known back in those days, was totally dominant as a player. Loved his style too. He was very, I think everybody knows Xavier, he's calmed down a lot now, but we got along really well as just kind of, guys who were not afraid to express themselves. So definitely got on well with him. And as for that tournament, man, like I got a fifer, like just coming off that fifer in that league thing and then winning that thing, I got a fifer against Barbados. And we actually beat them in first innings in Guyana. I remember getting Kirk Edwards and a few of the other guys, but I took a fifer in that game and we won first innings against Barbados, which was massive. Joel Garner actually, I think I had a presentation with Joel Garner, whatever, and he had a little chat with me after, and he was watching and had some really nice things to say at that time. And the funny story is, like, I did this whole thing with Joel Garner and everything was cool. And then I went up to one of my teammates and I'm like, man, that guy's huge. He should have played cricket. Like he would have been fast. And he's like, buddy, that's Joel Garner. Like he kind of played a little bit. You don't know anything about cricket, man. You're just a hockey player. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. And then I looked him up and I'm like, oh my God, man, I'm so out of my league right now. But that was it, man. Like being engulfed in that, literally 1 year from playing hockey, man. I was in Guyana doing that, playing that, and against so many good players. And we had a good team. Like we had good players in that Under-19 Canada setup. We had a lot of good players. So we actually didn't do too badly there in Guyana, but we should have done a lot better in the Under-19 World Cup with that team we had. But that's how it goes.
5 for 19 you took against Barbados.
5 for 19.
This is August 6th, 2003 in Enmore in Guyana. And this kind of sums up associate cricket in the early 2000s. JD, that is literally the only scorecard from that event that does not have complete scorecard. It just says 5 for 19, doesn't show who you got out. So who do you remember? Can you remember the 5?
Oh, like I just remember Kevin Stout, Kirk Edwards. Those are the two that I remember, man. Like, because again, at that time, like, dude, I didn't know who's good, who's not good. I really didn't follow cricket like that to the point where, to my fault, like I never go and look at these things and go back. Yeah, actually, a few months ago during COVID and stuff, I was so bored. I was in Seattle. I was so bored that I went and looked at the Under-19 World Cup was going on, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got a 5 for against Bangladesh, and so I went and looked at that scorecard, and then I'm like, oh, like I got Mamadullah and like Enamul Haq and these guys, and I was like, oh, these guys are test players, and I'm like, oh, fuck. I was feeling good about myself for a bit. Took myself to Jack in the Box, got an extra spicy chicken after that, and felt good. Posted it on my IG, got a few likes, so that was great. But yeah, like that West Indies tour was my first regional West Indies regional tour, and those are hard tours. Like we played a 1 day, 3 day tournament first, and then a 1 day tournament right after that. So it was a lot of cricket, and I just remember being in the barracks. Like we were in a I guess like a hotel motel sort of thing, and I just remember there was no AC. It was just windows, So I remember some of my teammates, I think Umar Bati was one of them, and you go into his room and he's just got his legs up, and there's like this fan just blowing on his legs because he's got like the chafing, like the underwear chafing and stuff. So he's just got his legs up, and there was like a few guys like that, and they're just like dying. It was so hot, and there was no AC. So I loved every minute of it, man. I was fresh and I was super fit and excited at that time. So that was an amazing experience playing against some really good players, and that that West Indies regional and the West Indies team that was formed for the Under-19 World Cup, I believe they lost in the finals, if I'm not mistaken. Xavier Marshall scored, I think, 400s in that tournament. And it was it's weird how he didn't get more of a go, but obviously we know kind of why. And I think I'm no different. I guess the what I say now, because cricket has evolved and sports have evolved so much, that these are just guys like myself and him who were just misunderstood at that time under a certain, I guess, disciplinary code of very old school mentality. So nowadays you look at these professional teams and they're looking for the guys who express themselves a lot. Like Rinku Singh is just an example, because I watched him yesterday. Just a guy who's always there, enjoying himself, and it would almost seem like, oh, this guy just fools around or whatever. But if they can take what they see and what is shown on the ground, and ignore sort of what happens off field and how somebody wishes to sort of go about their business and stuff, it's fine. But I get it. We were under 19 kids apparently at that time, so it was what it was. But shout out to Xavier Marshall, still kind of doing it and still scoring and still keeping his name in the hat with USA Cricket. I know they want to get rid of him and get rid of some guys, but hopefully he can keep it there, man. Like I got a lot of buddies. I got a lot of friends in US Cricket on both sides, MLC and the US team. And, I obviously support all of them as a friend.
You mentioned some of the names came up against. I'll run through the list. You were the leading wicket-taker for Canada in that Under-19 World Cup in 2004. 9 wickets overall in the tournament, including that 5 for 29 against Bangladesh. I'll go through some of the scorecards to give it, again, a sense of who you were coming up against. You played Australia. That was your first game that you played. And that Australia Under-19 team was captained by Tim Payne, and also featured Adam Crosthwaite, who was a long-time first-class player for Victoria. Moses Enriquez. Stephen O'Keefe was also in that side. You took 1 wicket. A guy named Ken Skews. He batted number 4 for Australia in that game. You took 1 for 20 in that match. Against Sri Lanka, which featured Nuwan Kulasekaran, who took a 5-wicket haul against Canada.
Yeah, he crushed us, man.
It sounds like it. You
crushed us.
You batted at 3. You were into the fire in the first over because he took 2 wickets in the first over. So you were at 3. Trevin Bastianpoy at number 4, top scored with 20. Canada all out for 81 in that game. But Upal Taranga, Farviz Maharouf was the captain. Kulasekaran wasn't Nuwan Kulasekaran. I'm looking.
No, it was Kosala Kulasekaran.
Yeah, Kosala Kulasekaran, who also played for Sri Lanka. So
yeah,
Kosala Kulasekaran, 5 for 27. Kaushal Silva, Angelo Matthews. There's some stacked teams, just a few decent guys here and there.
Yeah, not bad at all. Yeah, tough part for us with that tournament, man. We lost every toss, and the games are at 9:30, and we got put in, and it was like green and wet, and no excuses, but like we'd never seen like when Kulasekaran's spell, Moses Enrique's spell. Like when I batted against Moses Enrique's, I left one and it nipped back so much, and my off stump went tumbling. And unfortunately, my cousin Abid was our top batter, and he had COVID. No, not COVID. Probably had COVID at that time. Like he was really sick.
Took that Marty McFly time machine. He was going back in the DeLorean.
Oh man, I felt so bad because I was super sick in the warm-up games, so I never got to play in the warm-up games, and I just said I'm playing against Australia, and I was still sick, so toughed it out. But he was like, we shared a room and everything, so he was done and out. He missed the first 2 games, and then he came back when he was feeling just barely better. Like we're Keshvanis, man. We're warriors, man. We were sick, man. He still played. He played against Zimbabwe, and what did he make, man? Like 78 or 79 or something against a stacked Zimbabwe team. Like all those guys played Test cricket, I think, for Zimbabwe.
This might be arguably the most impressive team, in terms of future success at senior level. So He top scored in a total of 180. Your cousin Abid scored 63 out of that total, 63 off 107 balls, 8 fours, and a 6. And he was eventually bowled by Prosper Utsea. And then you look at the rest of that Zimbabwe team, almost everybody played at men's level in terms of senior international cricket. Brandon Taylor opened the batting. And then you've got Sean Williams batting at number 3, Tino Mawayo, who was the captain, Craig Irvine, Elton Chigumbura, Colin de Granholm. Before he went off to New Zealand, he was part of Zimbabwe. So you could argue that maybe toss it between him and Brendan Taylor, but before he went off to New Zealand, you could argue the best player who was in that Zimbabwe under-19 side didn't even play for Zimbabwe senior level.
Yep.
Graham Creamer, future Zimbabwe men's captain. Ed Rainsford and Tinashe Panyangara. Ed Rainsford, Now he was doing GT20 commentary. Is he in Philadelphia? Where is he based?
I don't know anything about Rainsford. I just thought that he was a pretty decent commentator. Like, I kind of liked his work. So I don't know. I don't know where he is. I don't know where these guys are, but that Zimbabwe team was awesome. They beat Australia. They went through to the next round as well, if I'm not mistaken.
You didn't take any wickets in that game. You lost by 8 wickets, but there were a lot of runouts in that game. Take us through. You were one of the runouts. Sean Williams ran you out for 2. Take us through that rest of that game. What do you remember from it?
Oh, I just remember the old yes, no, and then I just remember blaming the other guy like everyone else does at that age. But I was gutted, man. I wasn't scoring any runs, and like I said, I always backed myself to be a batsman, and they gave me a chance in that World Cup, as you could see in the other scorecards as under 19 guy, like no chances to bat either. And it was my trip to Delhi. I actually spent like 8 months in Delhi before that World Cup with like Sonnet. So like the reason why I had a pretty decent tournament bowling, I'll tell you, was because for 4 months straight, and I'm not joking, every day, Monday to Friday, I would bowl at Gautam Gambhir for 3 hours every day. Me and Amit Mishra, if you know, obviously everybody knows Amit Mishra, but me and Amit Mishra as spinners would literally bowl at Gautam Gambhir every day for 4 months straight. And our coach was Sanjay Bardwaj, who's a coach of the LB Shastri Academy, where those 2 players are from. And that's where I would be practicing. And then in the weekends, I would go and train with Sonnet Cricket Academy in Delhi, where I'd get to work on batting. So at Sonnet Cricket Club there's like Ashish Nehra and Akash Chopra and Shikhar Dhawan and Milind Kumar. If you know, Milind Kumar was in the camp now. I would have been a little kid at that time, but he comes from that same academy. So it was the time in India, man, like just playing amongst some really good players and good coaches and stuff that I think helped me. And my cousin Abid was with me in India as well. So, you know, those trips for associate, you know, countries, especially like Canada, it was the middle of the winter. And those trips and just being exposed to that level of cricket really helped us as young athletes, because I'd have to say that talent wise, you know, and athletic ability, like my cousin and I were right up there. And if I guess we're exposed to that sort of cricket on turf more consistently from a younger age, and then after that under-19 World Cup, I think we could have done wonderful things for Cricket Canada. But what happened was, after that under-19 World Cup, regardless of my cousin being the highest run scorer and me being the highest wicket taker, we were nowhere in any sort of senior Canada team's interest by any means. And my cousin Abid, as a result of that, just stopped playing cricket because he lived in Calgary at the time. And unfortunately, there was no turf wickets in Calgary. And for my cousin, it was, you know, I'm either going to play like proper cricket or I'm not interested. So he gave up, man, at age 20. And it was really sad to have him go through that while I maintained a career sort of in the backgrounds of domestic cricket in Toronto. And then, and obviously here I am today.
The Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast is presented by DreamCricket. DreamCricket Store can help you fill up all of your cricket kit requirements. Anything you need: bats, helmets, gloves, pads, jerseys, and more. Go to DreamCricketStore.com now and get 15% off your first order. DreamCricket Store also offers free shipping on all orders over $200. Again, go to www.DreamCricketStore.com to take advantage of that great offer today. This episode of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, presented by DreamCricket, is also sponsored by Moosa Cricket Stadium, the first turf wicket facility in the state of Texas, and now the first ODI-accredited venue in the Lone Star State, located at 5515 McKeever Road, County Road 100 in Pearland, 5 miles off the Bailey Road exit from State Route 288, a half hour south of downtown Houston. Moosa Cricket Stadium includes fully enclosed locker rooms and change rooms, plus shower facilities after a day's play, as well as outdoor nets for all your training needs. Moosa also has 2 nursery grounds on the north side of the stadium boundary available for use. For more information, visit www.moosastadium.com. That's MOOSA Stadium.com. Moosa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas. The Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast is also sponsored by Crickbuster. Based in Florida, Crickbuster is an ICC-designated official travel agent for the 2022 ICC Men's T20 World Cup in Australia. If you're a cricket fan living in the USA and you need match tickets, flights, hotels, stadium tours, or want to organize other sightseeing activities down under this October, Crickbuster is a one-stop shop for all of your touring needs. Visit www.crickbuster.com to begin planning your trip today. And now, back to the episode.
I want to ask you about that before going, but I just want to go through the rest of the Under-19 World Cup scorecards, including that Bangladesh game, which was the next game. But you kind of touched on something there. I've come across this with other people. I've experienced it personally. I said I stopped playing baseball at 10. Why did I stop playing baseball at 10? I was always very good for my age, and I made the league all-star team, our Triborough Little League all-star team that's supposed to be on the pathway to the Little League World Series. I made the all-star team. I hit, I don't know how many home runs that year as a 10-year-old, which was not easy. I was pretty strong for my age and was really good. Best player on my team. Was the only player for my team selected for the league all-star team. And then I get to the all-star team and I go from being the best player on the team. And I thought somebody who should have played more on the league all-star team to somebody who got to play the minimum 2 innings. I hardly got to play. And what frustrated me most about that was that, I don't know, people are going to think I'm like, this sounded really pathetic here, calling on these memories from 10-year-old Little League baseball. But what turned me off, and I've heard similar stories from other kids, you get nepotism involved. A lot of the volunteer coaches, they're inevitably somebody's dad. And the shortstop on this Little League All-Star team, I forget the kid's name. Dad's last name was Clark. I remember that much. This kid who was playing shortstop probably had the weakest arm on the team, and he was not very athletic. He should not have been starting. It wasn't just myself. There were about 5 other players who were on the bench, and we were all better than this kid. And we were stewing on the bench because we could see we were better. We knew we were better. And you know who was playing across the league. You come against these guys throughout the regular season. And this guy's son, I don't remember him standing out at all. And here he is, not only is he starting a shortstop, which in Little League, that's like one of your premier positions. Your first base, your pitching, your shortstop. Nobody really plays in the outfield. You don't put your premier players in the outfield.
Right.
This kid's getting a premier position, and he's batting, I think, lead off or second in the order. And he didn't do anything special with bat. And all of us on the bench, we're just getting more and more frustrated. What the hell is going on here? This kid's only playing because his dad's the coach. Why is this happening? So I went from being somebody who was like totally in love with baseball to feeling like I should be playing more. I'm a good player. And what the hell is this? I'm being kept on the bench because of some kid's dad is playing him. And that's why I'm not getting opportunities. And I thought, well, if this is how it's going to be going forward, I don't want to mess around with baseball. This is ridiculous. And it killed my enjoyment. That one summer, I went from being so in love with baseball and it being everything I wanted to do to I don't want to play this game anymore. I don't want to have anything to do with it. You hear that story a lot in cricket with nepotism and other things holding people back who are very good players who all of a sudden you could say, oh, well, maybe mentally they weren't there. They should have just persevered and gone through this roadblock. But when you're a teenager, young kid, and you're not worldly, you haven't gone through all these life experiences, it can be crushing and you don't know how to handle that kind of adversity sometimes.
Yeah.
And so your cousin, it sounds like this, in a sense, he encounters something where he's a very good player, best in the country at his age group, and then he graduates from that, and he's not getting an opportunity. And I'm just curious, and I know we'll probably talk about it with you a little bit later, when that happens and how frequently it happens, how much do you feel these kinds of things have wrecked junior development and just the overall development of a national team, whether it's cricket or any other sport, when these are the kinds of things that are taking place that disrupt a career?
Yeah, man, it's obviously been the frustrating part of I guess being involved with cricket in Canada and now to an extent, North America. I think it's no different anywhere you go, but I felt like at many times, at many periods of my cricket career here in Canada, it kind of at the highest level wasn't any different or maybe my AAA ice hockey my AAA minor league ice hockey team had a little bit more professionalism, organizational skill pathway than, the national team of Canada at that time. And like, it's like you nowadays you're able to open up and speak up about things, and you see a bunch of things and everybody says, well, politics, and that's how it goes. And unfortunately, that's kind of how it is nowadays. And it's, whether it's the parent who's sponsoring the team, whose kid gets to play more, whether it's being a part of a certain cast, and having support from certain cultural backgrounds, being that kid who's just not like, I obviously went through that in my career for sure. I think again, just being misunderstood was a huge thing, and I definitely look to, in my own coaching and players that I deal with and anything that I'm involved with, I really try to eliminate that stuff. I really try to work now like hands-on with players, where it's like, hey man, like, I'm not going to judge you type thing. Like, I want you to be yourself. I want you to express yourself, and you should be able to. And like I said earlier, all the professional sports teams, in the IPL and all that, you look at who runs these teams, Kumar Sangakkara, Ricky Ponting, Mahela, guys like that who were Morley, guys like that who just express themselves fully. Now, they're obviously very good at what they did, but they're allowing their players within the IPL, even some of the young guys who, I know a few guys who were playing in the IPL who think, it's great. You're able to just express yourself, be what you want to be, and be who you want to be. And nobody's judging you. Everybody's just judging you based on your cricketing ability, which is how it should be. So yeah, I kind of see a lot of that, I guess, resemblance of what happened within Cricket Canada, with regards to sort of politics and nepotism, as you said. And I don't think it'll be very different, and hopefully it's not too damaging or too threatening to where the US is in terms of cricket now, because I kind of just see a little bit of resemblance. Like Canada, qualified for 2003 World Cup, played it, 2007 World Cup, played it. And at that time, kind of noticed, like I was engulfed at that time as one of the players. So I kind of noticed a shift in governance, those who are kind of running the board, those who are kind of coming into these quote unquote volunteer positions to sit on boards. And, I guess when success is there and everybody wants to be a part of it, everybody wants to be involved. But I think where that stuff goes wrong is when those individuals want to control it. And I think that's where, US cricket, I would say, has to be a little careful, and Canada cricket has to continue to be a little bit more diligent, because you do want to make sure that you can face those hurdles and those challenges, which is the multicultural backgrounds of all the cricketers in the US and Canada. Like, it's not, for example, like for me, I'm going to Nepal. Every single player in the team is Nepali. So there's that pride of the flag, that I'm privy to how the team sort of is. And there's obviously hurdles and problems within every team, but it's more centered to maybe the team. Whereas, these sort of multicultural issues are probably more centered towards, the country and what they have to deal with that. So it is something that, like, I'm the kind of guy, like, me very well. I kind of say it like it is. And I've learned to be very diplomatic about it, but it is a real thing. So like, I'm definitely not saying anything that's not true, that's not factual. And they are definitely hurdles that are going to be there and will always stick around when you have different interests at large. So it's unfortunate in our game. Like, cricket's such a nice game, such a beautiful game, that these things come into play. But there's those who use it as an excuse a lot. There's those who, and I might be one of them. Like, I have a lot of regrets. I think I should have played a lot more cricket for the national team, not because of the pride of the country thing, because I really wanted to play against the teams that we were playing against. I really wanted to put myself against the competition that we were fortunate enough and lucky enough to be playing against. So that's for me is my regret in my career. And I do think that I was, one of those guys who was definitely misunderstood. And again, you've kind of called out some of my statistics and things that I kind of forgot about. And with everything, in terms of numbers and statistics, I probably should have played more than 5 or 6 games for Canada, like I did. I went on a lot of tours, but I only played 5 or 6 games. So that just goes to show you, like, I'm a prime example of that. But now, like, it's like I'm in a position now where I'm working with professional cricketers and international teams and franchise teams, And, I want to make sure that I'm there to share my story with these players about just being able to be understood, and maybe give a couple of tips and tricks as to how to navigate oneself, especially at a young age, to make sure that you don't get blacklisted, which is kind of the case for a lot of good players. And that's a really unfortunate thing within our sport. But like I said, I don't think it's any different in sports all over the world. And that's just kind of how it goes, right?
You said it. It's kind of the way of the world in some places. Just to wrap up my own story,
Yeah.
not to go on too much, but
the shortstop. You have pictures of that shortstop.
I've got it. It's like, I can't let it go. I tell you what pissed me off about it was the fact that a couple years earlier, now I had two older brothers. Both my older brothers played for the league all-star team. They similarly went on the path to the Little League World Series, trying to get there to Williamsport. And as this was happening in my age group for the Little League, for 2 years in a row, I was on a team. Now, I remember this guy. I'll never forget this guy, George Palazzi. Now, we called him Enrico Palazzo. It was a family joke. Enrico Palazzo out of the Naked Gun. So that was what we nicknamed him. George Palazzi was Enrico Palazzo. George Palazzi, his son Daniel, was on the team. And for I forget if it was 2 or 3 years in a row, George Palazzi in the league draft, I just happened to be on George Palazzi's team. And Daniel, same thing. I did not feel Daniel was a good player. Daniel did not make the league all-star team, but Daniel was always getting first dibs, any opportunity. Daniel Palazzi always played ahead of me and ahead of a lot of other kids. And it's frustrated the hell out of me because I knew looking at my brothers, they were good enough to play for the league all-star team. I felt like I'm playing with them in the backyard every single day, and we go to the batting cage and do all this other stuff. I feel like I'm just as good as them, and I just wasn't getting opportunities. So after 3 years of that nonsense, Daniel Palazzi finally graduates into the next age group. And I was then drafted by another coach. And that was the year I made my league all-star team and was going on the path to. So I was like, oh, breath of fresh air. That season, I 10-year-old season, I was like, finally, I'm free. I can go play. I don't have to worry about this nonsense of some dad prioritizing his son ahead of me. I can go play. And I played, had my best season. And then I get to the league all-star team, and it's the same bullshit.
Yeah.
Somebody's dad has got his son, prioritizing him, giving him the first opportunity. And I thought I escaped this, and now it's the same shit all over again. And if this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life, I don't want any part of this. I had enough of this nonsense when I was 7, 8, and 9. I thought I escaped it when I had my 10-year-old season, and then I get to the league all-star team, and the cycle repeated itself. And I just thought, forget it.
That's why I like golf, man. Nobody on your team, no parents around. It's a tough sport, though.
You say that again. Yeah, my daughter's getting into golf now. I'm thinking like, oh, I'm kind of torn because I'm thinking like, oh, of all the bullshit I've had to deal with in team sports, which I've enjoyed. Team sports.
It'd be interesting. I wonder what comes in, what hurdles there are with regards to kids golf. I'm sure it's like somebody's parents have sponsored this or that and they get a go, or maybe that Palazzi's dad was like a mobster or something. So nobody could say anything to him.
Hey man, Della Penna, I can fight fire with fire on that front, man.
It wouldn't shock me, Peter.
Back to the Bangladesh, the Under-19 World Cup, because this is your peak moment in junior cricket. 5 for 29, which was in the plate group at this stage. You took the wickets of Nafiz Iqbal, Aftab Ahmed, Ashikur Rahman, who was the captain, Mahmudullah. You said it. There's a guy, Mahmudullah, turned into a Bangladeshi legend, senior level, and Nadif Chowdhury. What do you remember most about that 5-wicket haul?
Oh man, the Chittagong Stadium was full. There was like maybe 20,000 people screaming. We batted first. We only made like 150 or 140 something, so didn't have much to go with. But I was on that day for sure. All the variations, everything that I sort of planned kind of worked out. And once we had them, I feel like once we had them a few wickets down early, and I was early in my spell, I got a few early wickets there and started to sledge and put them under pressure big time. My cousin Abid was standing at first slip, and he actually took a screamer. Whichever guy was caught Abid Keshvani.
That was Mahmudullah, the one and only.
Mahmudullah, yeah. So that wicket, man, it was a quicker ball. Like I used to bowl this quicker ball at some pace, I would say, and he nicked it, and Abid took a one hand over his head sort of diver, and they were under pressure. But whoever came and finished off the game for them, he came in and like literally first ball, he was plumb in front. Like it was like one of those where you're just like, how is that not out? So I ended up asking the umpire at least 10 times, like, how is that not out? And he just ended up having no answer for me. Like, so I would have had I should have had 6 wickets, and whoever that guy was who ended up finishing it off there went on and obviously not out. But it was disappointing because I think had that guy had got given at that time, I still had a few balls in my spell. Not that I would have taken another one, but I think that we would have been into their bowlers and it would have been interesting. But yeah, whatever, they managed to pull it off. And I got a man of the match at that game. And yeah, I had to sign so many autographs. I saw like security were just caning guys and caning kids trying to get in through the fences, and it was chaos actually. So it was a great experience for me at that time. Like there was army guys everywhere. They would escort us, and it was a big deal. It wasn't too far post sort of 9/11, so all that stuff was on full throttle. And it was an experience for me where, it started, I guess, with the 5-wicket haul in the league thing, where I kind of made my name, and then the 5-wicket haul in the West Indies regional against Barbados, and then obviously this 5-wicket haul in an under-19 World Cup against a host nation. I guess it just gave me that sort of belief, like, you're probably a decent player. You should pursue this cricket thing, and I did, and I don't even know what I did with my skates and all my hockey equipment, but I didn't play hockey for many, many years after that. So yeah, that was the start of a little bit of success. And it didn't go to my head, I would say, because I was already a cocky little guy anyway. So it was just almost walking around like as if like, yeah, I was meant to do that. So definitely confident, and won't forget that one ever. My dad and my uncle were there as well for that. So to have my dad there, to be able to witness that with, I spoke earlier about, his sacrifices and what he sacrificed for me in my life. And that was a gift that I really would never forget giving him. And I give a lot of credit to him in supporting my career at that time. And that was great.
And Mamanoa, arguably, is not the biggest wicket you took at that tournament. Last 2 scorecards, Ireland and Uganda. Ireland in the team with William Porterfield, Gary Wilson, Kevin O'Brien. Who did you get out? Owen Morgan. World Cup winning captain Owen Morgan. You got him under your thumb, man. Take us through that wicket.
Well, just remind me, like, what was it? Caught and bowled. Yeah. Okay, so he kind of smashed it, and I, had pretty decent hands. I was a little athletic. I remember catching that one, throwing it up, and I mean, you play these under-19 tournaments, though, Peter. You don't know Owen Morgan is going to be Owen Morgan, right? Like you just kind of go through it and everything. But Ireland had a gun team as well. If you call out those names, Kevin O'Brien, Porterfield, Owen Morgan, and just guys who played a pivotal role in making Ireland not only a successful ODI and team, but then a test team. Like a lot of those guys played a huge role with that. And here's a funny thing, man, is like you see all these teams, these under-19 teams, and even Ireland, some of the associates, like you can even say Bangladesh at that time, like you have these under-19 players in your system and they just played a World Cup, but you don't, like, I'm talking for Canada, like after that, like none of the guys really got to go except for Umar Bhatti, who obviously went on and had a very successful career, but he wasn't the most successful under-19 player for us by any means. He just kind of got it right and had that left arm and managed to sort of sort himself out. But yeah, we never really had any opportunities in the senior team coming out of that. There was no real program for that. And you guys all know the story of what happened to Jeff Thomas, the national team coach in 2003. So there was no under 23 set up anymore. So really nothing for us to thrive on and jump on. But yeah, they figured it out 2 years later. And the Ravindus and the Hirals and then the Nitish Kumars a few years, 3-4 years later, got a lot of opportunities coming out of their under 19 setup. And obviously they went on to have amazing careers. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of the guys, I speak to them even now. One of the guys, Gavin Bastianpillai, who's an what do you call it? Eye doctor, man? Optician or ophthalmologist? So he's an ophthalmologist, checked me out. He said, I got 20/20 vision because I was complaining I couldn't see at night when I was driving. But he's like, you have 20/20 vision. And I said, Gavin, thank you very much, man. I'm so happy I don't have to spend money on glasses and all this nonsense. So But he's another guy, we had a quick chat about it. Just the regrets of not being given that platform, not being given that backing or support or even pathway after that World Cup was really disappointing for all of us. And I think a lot of the guys would have had pretty good careers had they had a chance. But again, that's how it goes. And Canada had a stacked team at that time as well. So, I'm like fighting for John Davison's spot basically, right? As a off spinner and all that. So it's like, I'm a realist as well, man. You got to be dominating, at all levels at all times. And it just wasn't meant for me at that time. John Davison was pretty good.
It was all right. Took 17 wickets against USA in an I-Cup match.
Yeah. I mean, USA has come a long way. Let's just say that.
The other wicket, Davis Karashani, longtime Uganda captain. That was your final wicket in the tournament. So within the associate sphere, whether it was Uganda, Ireland at the time, Test Nations, you took some big wickets. But the overarching theme, what you talked about, despite all this junior success, limited opportunities at senior level, you talked about it. You only played officially, looking here, 5 ODIs, 2 T20Is, 2 I-Cup matches for Canada, and then some other matches that were not classified as ODIs or T20Is at that point in time. Your last match made your debut officially in 2009 in ODIs against Scotland at Aberdeen, which is a very lovely ground. And that's where Don Bradman played his last match, I believe.
Yeah, correct.
Up in Aberdeen. There's a lot of stuff there about Bradman if anybody's ever visited that ground, which you have, obviously.
Beautiful ground.
Then your last match came in the winless tour of Scotland in the 2015 T20 World Cup qualifier against Oman. That was your final appearance for Canada. So just a handful of matches spread across 6 years, essentially. One of the things I find fascinating about players who have had your kind of career at senior level, for whatever reason, when we talked about a lot about those reasons, what the obstacles were, and the lack of promotion of grassroots talent, homegrown talent, if you're really trying to make this sport a mainstream sport in a place like Canada. In spite of all that, I find a lot of successful coaches are in your position because they weren't the best or they weren't given the best opportunities. And so they're able to empathize a hell of a lot more with players who are going through the exact scenarios that you are. Not everybody's going to be the leading scorer in their country's history, but a hell of a lot of players are going to be dropped quite a number of times, have to fight for recalls. It's part of why you got the Dropped Again name for the podcast, Dropped Again. You've been through that whole merry-go-round time and time again. And I'm just curious for you, of all the things that you went through over the course of your career, in particular, the long tours where you didn't get to play, where you were right on the bench and briefly called in and then straight back to the bench. What do you feel will give you the best way of connecting and communicating with players, whether it's with this Nepal setup that you're now a part of or any other coaching setup or strength and conditioning work that you've done with other athletes, that you feel makes you best able to connect with athletes in order to become a really good coach?
Yeah. So like you said it, like there's 2 sides, man. There's the empathetic side where it's like, I kind of feel I feel your pain and, I kind of went through, but the other side of it is like those guys who want things really easily as well. Right. So I'm very transparent, very realistic, kind of say it like it is. Like, a lot of the times I have to convey messages, which are for me, the easiest to just say like, hey, listen, like right now you're not good enough for this spot. And this guy is actually performing better. So he's the reason. And on the other side of that, it's like, you like, for example, when I coach the Titans franchise in the major US tournament, so US Open and the recent Houston Open, and you've got guys in your team who are professional players that have, resumes the ass, and only 11 guys can play on a squad of 18 professional guys. Only 11 guys can play. So here I am in the position now where I have to inform some guys that you're not playing this game. You're not dropped. You're just not playing this game. And the how you approach it and look at it is, for me, very realistic and professional. You might as well just say it because there's no right way to say it. And I think some of the things that I've learned is saying things like, unfortunately, so-and-so has to miss out today. And, hopefully you'll be able to get a chance in the games coming up. And that's just the reality of it, right? Like if somebody's performing well and they have a spot, you got to be realistic with the player. You got to let them know sort of what their role is and what sort of role you're looking at them to do. And how, a lot of guys will say, well, what do I got to do to get in the team? What do I got to do to get in the team? It's like, I was doing everything I could. I'm winning most runs in the domestic cricket every year. I'm taking wickets. I'm proving to be a dominant force and winning matches on my own hand year after year. How come I'm not getting a chance? How come I didn't play more ODIs? How come I didn't get to play in a World Cup? So I don't really have too much sympathy with that, right? Like, I mean, you want to play, I think that spot is just going to become yours if you really dominate in your role. And a lot of things have to go your way. Like, it's luck, it's opportunity, it's timing, when you're going to actually play well, who's watching, who's your dad, things like that, right? Like, there's just so many factors there. But I like the realistic approach now. And the best thing for that is franchise cricket. When franchise cricket started coming out, like, again, we're all watching IPL. We all watch, like, Pat Cummins sitting there with his bib on. We are watching, stars, international stars sitting there with their bibs on, not playing. So you got to take it on the chin. That's my advice to anyone listening. You got to take it on the chin. You got to keep working hard. And even if you do work hard, even if you do think you belong there, even if you are being blacklisted or shunned or whatever, like, that's how it is. So you got to just kind of roll with those punches. And if it's meant for you, it's meant for you. And if it's not, like, try not to dwell on it too much. There's many other cool things about life than being picked to play cricket. But again, that's just the way it goes. There's no real sugarcoating that I would do now, or the way that I go about my business, because of how and what I went through, and also just how I think about it as a realistic, sports person. Like, that's how it goes.
Strength and conditioning, you're in that background now. That's your official title. You've done a lot of that inside and outside of cricket, a lot outside of cricket, and then leading back into cricket to where you are now with the Nepal team. So part one of this question, how did you get into strength and conditioning as a background, and what have you learned from dealing with athletes in other sports that made you feel like there is some value that you have to offer in cricket, especially in a part of the cricket ecosystem where the strength and conditioning in the associate world really has not been seen as a necessary role in the past. And it's only really in the last couple of years where associate teams, whether through increased funding or just an increased desire to elevate their standard of professionalism, that they're starting to take it seriously to the extent that they will hire somebody like you in a full-time role.
This goes back to when I played hockey, AAA hockey. Like, I had a personal trainer. A lot of guys in my team had personal trainers. Strength and conditioning was something that was very high on our off-season list. We had booklets and things that we had to follow from that age. So I fell in love with it at that age. So yeah, I studied kinesiology. And when I was playing cricket for Canada, even in those tours that I'd be going on, I was always passionate about fitness. So I do a lot of research. I do a lot of watching. And once YouTube came out, it became my thing. And I was really engulfed in that. So I studied it for sure. And I was, fortunate enough to start actually training clients at the age of 21. So at that time I was training a lot of guys who were sort of on the cusp, like minor league hockey players who were in my situation playing AAA hockey and trying to make it, get drafted. And I ended up getting a lot of clients that way, just through those roads and those avenues. And so a lot of my training, strength and conditioning experience is just pure ice hockey. And it translates so well into cricket, like we talked about before, just being so, explosive and sort of hip dominant. And, with all the years that have gone by, I started when I was 21, I'm turning 38. So I do have, 15 plus years experience dealing with all kinds of athletes, even all kinds of regular Joes and regular moms and everything in between. So those experiences have just allowed me to get more clients, more people in front of me, more issues with mobility, more issues with needing someone actually having a tear and needing some surgeries or needing to actually go to the next step. So, that for me is kind of what carried me to where I am. I've done a lot of certifications. I've done a lot of workshops. So, I'm pretty well versed in strength and conditioning. So I just recently did my international specialist course, and I continue to do the educational side of things, right? I'm still really passionate about it. I'm still really into it. And, to your point, not just associate cricket, Peter, cricket as a sport as a whole is quite behind in the realms of strength and conditioning. If you look at what they're doing with hockey, I've trained a few NHL players. I've trained, guys who are in the AHL and on the cusp. And the modernization of strength and conditioning, even what I do in my personal gym, is, from what I see, a little bit ahead of where the world of cricket is relative to S&C and strength and conditioning. But that's why I'm so excited, is to just kind of bring my, what I think is a cricket specific sort of philosophy now that I've taken it on full time with regards to cricket. And I'm excited to sort of implement that and more so see the effects of that, right? I want to see the results of that. And I think this opportunity with Nepal Cricket is cool because, again, these guys are really hardworking. It's a system that Pubadu's built, so you know that there's a lot of discipline there. There's a lot of respect there. And the most important thing for me, which is what excites me the most, is just the professionalism and now being in a role where it's like, I get to implement the whole program for the guys and actually look at each player as an individual and set up programs for them individually and sort of work with that team as we go and enjoy and be able to measure some of the success. So, it's a long-winded question. Like, I could literally talk about strength and conditioning relative to cricket all day. And if you guys, or if you follow me on my IG, I tend to do a little bit of that as well. Apart from obviously training clients while I'm here and just still being engulfed in a few businesses, etc. But yeah, man, I'm super excited. Strength and conditioning, I think, is a game changer for cricket. Like, if you watch IPL and just the way the game is now, I think, like today, Liam Livingston hit a six that went 117 meters. I would probably say in the next 2 to 3 years, I'm calling it even shorter, that 120 meter sixes will be a norm. So that's an exciting thing for the game. I think on the opposite side, somebody who bowls 150 clicks, the amount of things that need to go right in your body, the luck that you need to have just to sort of, stay injury free when running in and doing that is tough. But there's so many advanced sort of techniques and advanced things going on in strength and conditioning. And you can only expect to see athletes more explosive, more powerful, faster, as I say, bigger, stronger, faster, right? And we're seeing that in sports all over the world. So you can expect, cricket to become really entertaining and interesting. And I just hope that they keep the 50 over format around and they don't just go T10, because otherwise it's just basically like a home run derby. And as cool as it is to see 120 meter six, it's also cool to see a guy come in 4 or 5 down, spend 70 balls getting 50, and then maybe in the next 30 balls, he can get another 50 and get 100 off 100. That there's nothing more fascinating than that for me. And so, yeah, there's a lot of ODI cricket coming up for Nepal, and it's a format that is a heavy focus for them. It's a super exciting role for me, man. I've been obviously looking forward to it for a while now, and I think I'm definitely qualified and just anxious to get going with that and another learning and growing experience for me.
Just one more quick follow-up to that before the favorite 11. The recent trend, you touched on it in sports, guys are getting bigger, stronger, faster, but in very subtle ways. You look at what's going on in baseball. There's more pitchers who are throwing 100-mile-per-hour pitches on a consistent basis than at any point in history. Usually in the past, even as recent as 10, 15 years ago, you might have a handful of guys who are throwing 100 miles an hour who could even hit it. And then you got somebody like Jacob deGrom for the Mets, who was throwing 25, 30, 35 pitches in a 80-pitch appearance that are exceeding 100 miles an hour. Yeah. And he's not a big guy. You look at him, he's not a Hulk by any stretch, very lean muscle. And you talked about, bowlers who are consistently, a lot more bowlers now bowling 145, 150. You look at the guy like Umran Malik with Sunrisers, who doesn't look like a big guy, but he's doing something with his strength and conditioning, his training, that's allowing him to consistently hit 150 on the speed gun in the IPL. And a guy like Liam Livingston, again, not the biggest guy. He's not Chris Gale. He doesn't have rippling muscles. But you look at somebody like him, Glenn Maxwell, obviously they're doing something with their training that they're not building. It's not looking like the steroid era of baseball where guys like Brett Boone and some of these other guys just had absurd muscles bursting out of their chest, Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, and all that kind of stuff. The cricketers who are doing the training and other sports, baseball, Giancarlo Stanton, you could look at him. He's a big dude. He's physically built big, but he's not like Popeye muscles, where he needs to cut holes in his shirt. So what, in your eyes, is the number one thing that has shifted in terms of the habits to allow players, whether it's cricket, baseball, ice hockey, other sports, to allow them to be stronger, quicker, more efficient with their training and better producing on the field of play? And what do you think is the biggest misconception about strength and conditioning that has held that back over the years, in cricket in particular, from being able to be encouraged and get guys in the, whether it's the weight room or just other sorts of training, to allow them to be better tuned athletes?
Yeah, I think the misconception, if you look at, strength and conditioning, and I'm just going to speak to, I guess, the subcontinent backgrounds, right? Because if you look at England and New Zealand and Australia, they've been lifting weights. They've been on the realms of S&C for a long time. But from a subcontinent perspective, that misconception is, I don't want my son to go to the gym and lift weights because he's going to make him short. And that you're talking about, like, literally from the grassroots is what you can relate, and sort of it trickles up, right? Which is why we're so behind, and they're so behind, is that it's taken them so long to be convinced that, like, no, like, lifting weights and resistance training, all it'll do is just make you stronger, right? Like, if you kind of dumb it down. And so I think now that the doors are open to these strength and conditioning coaches who you now see within franchise cricket, strength and conditioning coaches that associate nations are hiring, why it's so important is what has changed about sport overall, which is just the focus on the more of the facets of strength and conditioning, which actually involve a lot of mobility and stability work. You see, like, injuries and, like, what's the job? Like, what's my job, right? Like, in a cricket realm where, like, these guys are playing year round. So there's really no quote unquote off season where we can go and hit weights and build muscle and build strength. It's like, if I'm doing my job, it means, like, the players are not getting injured. They're not getting soft tissue injuries, right? Like, you break a leg, you break a bone, whatever, like, that's bad luck. That's how it goes. But how do we, prevent soft tissue injuries? How do we keep you, best player guy, on the field, right? Because that is basically, the job of an S&C. That's what, they hire you for. They want to make sure that the players are there. So my philosophies on that, like, I focus a lot on mobility work and stability work and sort of rehab when it comes to these athletes. And the conditioning part, the strength part, you have to build in so many facets for cricket, and it makes it difficult, right? Like, you look at a guy like Andre Russell, who comes and, bowls 145, smashes it 100 plus meters. But, like, if you see him diving around in the field on the boundary, throwing around that big body, being able to dive around, stand up, get up, and throw it right over the keeper's gloves every time and not get injured. Now, he's gone through injuries, but if you look at his injury rehab process and how they've sort of modified his program to be a lot more well-rounded when it comes to, like, he's working with professional guys from the Dallas Cowboys, I believe. And that's translating through his strength and conditioning coach with Kolkata, who attends those sessions in Dallas. So that strength and conditioning coach gets to learn from some guys as well. So no, that's just kind of, where this just the whole sort of well-rounded realm of fitness and strength and conditioning, and where it's going is just in that direction where I think athletes are able to explore a little bit more. They're able to get a little bit more out of their bodies just by kind of feeding into some of the things that they might be deficient with, a lot of muscle imbalances. So, just really quickly, cricket is a very, very anterior dominant sport, right? Like, we're always in that squat position. We're always in that lunge position. Cricketers that bench press a lot, does it really make sense in that realm, or does it make sense to sort of work on the muscles in the body that we're not using as much, so there's more of a balance there? Because that's how you see guys get injured, where there's a lot of imbalances in their bodies because they're obviously dominant in one area. You really want to make sure that you're balancing things out. So, for me, I do a lot of single arm and single leg work, a lot of unilateral work, and my major focus is on stability and mobility. And you'll see that in a lot of professional S&Cs across sports worldwide. That's sort of the focus of what they do. And, once an athlete is able to fire on those cylinders, then obviously, yeah, building strength is something that's definitely in the on the cards and what I do for sure. And from a conditioning perspective, same thing. But the hardest part about cricket, I think, is the recovery side. When you have an ODI series, you have one day off. It's
or
tough.
no days off if you look at the schedule. So there's some back-to-backs.
Yeah. Even T20s, like, T20 is a very high octane game. You may not be involved in the game. We may not have got runs that day, or may not have bowled 4 overs that day, but just being on the field and every ball being switched on, and the demands and the weather, sometimes the humidity type thing. So it's the recovery side. So, from strength and conditioning to nutrition to recovery to treatment, physios, RMTs, how important they are. how important sleep is, how important, what you eat at night is. So, just adding all those things. And again, all it's doing is giving a player, an athlete, 1% chance of getting a little bit better, right? Like if you can sleep that extra hour and really get into your 7-8 hours that you need to recover, if you can go from 6 hours and get that 8 hours, is that 1% better? That's going to be 1% better. Same thing with the nutrition, same thing with how you train, same thing with your routines in the morning. So that's where it's heading. That's where it's headed. That's what I do. That's what I'm going to implement with the Nepal team. That's what I'm going to implement in anything that I do, is just sort of this modern age and modern era of strength and conditioning, which is, in my opinion, not so much the brute force of lifting weights to a degree where, like, hey man, you're not really lunging or squatting properly. I'm not sure that you should put 100 kilos on the bar and squat. So just because that's what it says in your program, right? Like it's I'm in a nice position where I get to be hands-on. Like, I'm a hands-on guy. So it's about being able to teach these guys and work with them in their bodies, and it's over time, right? You can't, this is something that you need to be consistent with. So I'm interested and I'm looking forward to educating on that side. And then again, obviously the hands-on work and more than that, just learning, right? Learning and growing with the guys. If I can learn some stuff from them, they can learn some stuff from me, then we're growing as a team. And yeah.
Favorite 11 time, Shaheed Keshvani. Here we go. Your favorite roommate on any cricket tour?
Marty Kane.
Oh, wow. The San Diego surfing Marty Kane.
Legend of a guy, man. Huge respect for him. He's a beauty. Really quick. I know it's quick fire, but so every night we were in Houston. So every night I'd go out, I'd come home, later. Marty's he goes to sleep early, whatever. But those little hotel, like those little flashlights that they put on if you're like reading a book or whatever. So every night I'd come in late, like maybe a little bit in the bag, and that little flashlight was just pointing on my pillow, so I'd know how to get in. And so Marty Kane, legend. Big shout out to him. I got a lot of respect for him. He's a great guy.
Favorite way to spend a 14-hour flight to or from Dubai, or on your way to Nepal, or back from Nepal to Canada into the US?
So I'm a huge mafia movie guy. So I'll probably watch Godfather, at least 1 and 2. I'll probably watch A Bronx Tale. I'll probably watch Gotti and maybe Donnie Brasco. Seriously.
No Goodfellas? Come on.
No, like maybe Goodfellas, but it's not my favorite out of the ones that I said.
For people who can't see this, you got quite a lot of tattoos. Your favorite tattoo?
It's hard to kind of show you, but there's, maybe you could see that there. So if you guys follow me on IG, like my idol is Bruce Lee. A lot of his philosophies on life, a lot of his disciplines and stuff are really important to me. So I have a tattoo, which you can see here, and it's Bruce Lee and Mike Tyson kind of fighting as if they were going to have a fight. Yeah, Tyson just kind of represents the grit and that sort of beast mode, mean mentality about me. And Bruce Lee has that sort of calm, flow like water sort of reminder for me. But Bruce Lee is my guy. He's definitely helped me through a lot mentally and physically in my life.
Your favorite cricket ground experience that you've had as a player?
I would have to say that would be the Nairobi Gymkhana. I have played there, I've trained there, and just because of how close it is to my dad and his career, obviously Kenya has the best food, hands down, barbecue, if you've ever been to Africa. So that was the main thing there, is like they're always kind of serving you good food. It's a great facility. The wicket is flat as you can imagine. And just the vibes around there, being around, I guess, my own people, I had the best experience at Nairobi Gymkhana for sure.
Favorite cricketer of all time?
Favorite cricketer of all time, without a doubt, is Sachin. I think just the way that he was way ahead of his time, just how good he looked batting. I'd have to say Sachin, but very close second place would be Ricky Ponting.
Favorite non-cricket athlete of all time?
I'd probably say Leo Messi. I know it's very generic. Everybody likes Leo Messi, but I did follow him coming out of the academy there at Barcelona. So that whole Iniesta, Xavi, Messi time when they were playing for Barcelona, I really liked the football or soccer that they played, the tiki-taka style. I thought that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and I missed that a lot. So Messi, who's coming to the end of his career, is definitely my favorite non-cricketing athlete.
I was waiting for you to say Wendell Clark or Matt Sundin or Felix Potvin or Ty Domi, Austin Matthews, a Maple Leaf. No love for the Leafs.
Okay, so favorite hockey player of all time, like Wayne Gretzky, and these are all like the best guys, but like Wayne Gretzky, the way he would pass the puck without looking, again, guys who are just way ahead of their time, guys who are just so disgustingly dominant, really catch my eye. And so like Gretzky, it would be at the top of that list as well.
No bitterness about what happened in Game 7 in '93 with Wendell Clark.
Hey, listen, the Leafs just won Game 1 yesterday, so if we can come out of round 1 here, we're doing all right. I'm happy with that.
Your favorite place to eat out on tour away from home?
Yeah, so like in Dubai, they have these places and they're called Mandi. It's called Mandi. So you go and you got to like sit on the floor. You got to eat with your hands, but they'll bring you this like big dish. It's like lamb that's been cooking there all day and rice. And you kind of sit around the guys. You have to sit on the floor. The food is delicious, and just the whole vibe of, there's just something about sitting on the floor, kind of eating with your hands, getting into the whole roots of it. And so anytime you're in Dubai or places like that, look up these places called Mandi, where you can go and kind of eat with your hands and get involved into the culture side of it. It's amazing. I love that. So I'm always looking for it. Anytime I go to Dubai, that's the thing that I want to do.
Favorite beverage, any kind?
I'm a huge cider guy. So beers, but ciders that are really dry. When I was in Seattle, working with Major League Cricket there, I had a chance to go to quite a few breweries, and I've obviously been around too. So cider, definitely, especially the different ones, the pear ones. You can get different flavored ones, but they all have to be really dry. So literally 3 grams or 2 grams of sugar or less. So the really, really dry cider with a little bit of ice in it. Favorite
pizza topping?
Mushrooms.
Favorite movie of all time? You ran through some mob ones before. What's the favorite if you had to pick one?
Yeah, so Godfather is definitely my favorite movie. Just the code, the mafia code, and just everything around that, I think is it really sort of resonates with me. And very close second is a movie called Gotti, but not the one with John Travolta. It's the one with Armand Assante.
I knew you were gonna. It's the HBO original movie, Armand Assante.
Yeah. And like it's funny because you can't find that Gotti on any of the things, Netflix, whatever. I know you guys in the US, you might have more access, but even when I was there, I couldn't find it. You can't find A Bronx Tale, and you can't find the movie Slapshot. So those are 3 movies that are my favorite movies of all time, and you can't find them on any of the platforms. No, go figure.
Favorite binge show to watch on any streaming platform or DVD box set? What's your go-to?
So it's a show called The Wire. An HBO show called The Wire. It's about, Baltimore's, I guess, culture when it comes to 5 different perspectives. So each season has a different perspective, and I would highly recommend. It's on HBO. It's always available to watch. It's called The Wire, and you should watch seasons 1 through 5.
For anybody who hasn't seen The Wire, Michael K. Williams as Omar Little, the gay Baltimore drug dealer, is one of the greatest TV roles, most underappreciated TV roles of all time. This show is probably a little bit more well-known for Idris Elba. That was his breakout role, and as Stringer Bell. And then there's Avon Barksdale. There's some other characters in there that make the show great. But for me, Omar Little, you just gotta watch the show. It's hard to describe what you talked about. It's about Baltimore and the drug scene and police and all sorts of stuff. But if you haven't, it's one of the all-time great shows, whether it's HBO in there with The Sopranos and Game of Thrones or any other show for that matter. The Wire. Yep. Great recommendation, Shady. That's a great way to cap off the favorite 11. So I'll give you the final word, Shady. This is your chance now. Say whatever you want to say that you want people to know about you, that you haven't already said, that you think they should know about you and your cricket journey.
I got to say it like that. I really like those who reach out to me about fitness, cricket. Like, there's no like dumb questions. So I think a lot of people are maybe intimidated to just reach out and be like, I'm having an issue with this or that. Like I love to help people. I love to share my knowledge. And, so just to everyone who's got any sort of questions about strength, conditioning, rehab, injury, whatever, don't be afraid to reach out. I might not get back to you right away, but I do definitely get back. And yeah, man, like I got like county players who play Ranji Trophy, and like club cricketers in Trinidad. So like there's people from all over the world who reach out to me a lot. And that's the beauty about what I do. So I just encourage people to reach out to me with regards to those things, and so that I can at least point you in the right direction if obviously I won't be able to do any hands-on work with you. So I'm obviously very passionate about what I do, and very dedicated and very hardworking. And I think, I just want to, obviously thanks for having me on and being able to share my story. I know a lot of the under 19 stuff brought back a lot of cool memories and that. And when it's on paper and the stats are there, they don't lie, right? Mr. Della Penna will tell you that for free. So, and also, man, I've always been a fan of you. Love your work. Obviously, Cricinfo is something that everybody strives to be on and read and look at. It's the pinnacle of cricket. So, yeah, man, thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you. And for people who haven't listened to it, Dropped Again podcast. It's mainly focused about Canadian cricket, but you've got a lot of other guests. You've had some West Indian guests and some Indian guests, and even some recent guys through MLC. Harmeet Singh was one of the recent episodes, and that along with a lot of other guests, must listen. It's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. It's on my download list. And Dropped Again podcast, you can get it on the usual places online. And your Instagram handle, you said people reach out to you. I'm not on Instagram, but for the people who are, what's your Instagram handle?
So my Instagram handle is 360 Shady. So it's 360 Shady. You kind of type that in, or just type my name, Shaheed Keshvani. You'll definitely find me and add me. I'll add you back. And again, hit me up with any sort of things and questions and stuff about cricket.
Shady, thanks again for coming on the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast.
Thanks again, buddy.
Thanks again to Shaheed Keshvani for coming on the podcast. You can keep following him, as he said, on Instagram. He's more than open and willing to share all of his knowledge. I want to remind everybody to please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube if you're looking for the latest episodes on the video version, or alternatively the audio version on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Anchor FM, Spotify, and other podcasting outlets. And also a big thank you to all the Patreon supporters. For as little as $3 a month, you can help support the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast being produced on an episode-by-episode basis. So by all means, if you haven't already done so and you have not yet become a patriot for the podcast, go to patreon.com to sign up today, and there's all sorts of benefits that come along with it. That's it for this episode. I'm Peter Della Penna, reminding everybody, God bless America and God bless American cricket.